So on the presentation and analysis of inventory, the users of your financial statements, it's basically pretty much common sense what they'd want to need to know. They want to know what's your inventory made up of. This is especially important if you're a manufacturer because you have inventory in different stages of completion. And obviously your finished goods are more liquid in terms of the ability to turn them over than if you've got everything at the raw material stage. So they really want to know, what are that would be useful information to your financial statement users. What's your inventory made up of? Are there any financing arrangements on it? You always have to disclose related party transactions regarding anything. Any product financing arrangements? Is it pledged as collateral? And purchase commitments. We know how much trouble you can get into with those. Actually, they're a good thing if they work out. Okay, then inventory costing methods. You have to tell what method of cost, LIFO, FIFO, average cost, and then whether you're using the lower of cost or net realizable value, or in those specific industries, the lower of cost or market. You have to keep with the same methods year to year. For analysis of inventory, I'm not going to go over these. These are the two ratios that come in particularly handy. And these really help analysts look at the financial statements, but they also help management and think of yourself as running a company or having to manage this area of it. Especially the days in inventory tells you on average how long you're holding your inventory. And obviously you want to be holding it less days than more. So these help management make decisions about how much inventory to buy, what types of inventory, and all of that. The basic thought process they go through is they weigh the carrying costs of having enough inventory to meet everything their customers want versus the carrying costs of that they get the carrying costs of having enough inventory versus the costs of not having enough inventory. So it costs money in terms of the storage and buying the inventory, and it might get obsolete. Those are all your costs of having inventory. But then and these are a little bit harder to measure, the costs of not having enough inventory, how many sales are lost because of it. And so the ratios and a lot of other complex equations help businesses make the decisions on these. Now we've been thinking, we tend to think of inventory as stuff like at Target, but there's other kinds of inventory that are sort of interesting that you might run into at some point. And say the film industry, you watch Netflix, all those series, those are their inventory. And so they have to figure out, if it costs so much to make it, well, we're going to match those costs against the revenues that come in. But how do we know exactly how those revenues are going to come in? Is this show going to be good for 5 years, 10 years, 20 minutes? I think if the film flops, they have to kind of write everything off right away. So if they make a film or a series that costs $20 million and they think it'll produce revenue for 2 years, then they'd expense $10 million each year. For 4 years, they'd only be expensing $5. So you can see where there's room here for a lot of error. And I guess one of the ones that was really problematic was Cagney and Lacey. They assumed the revenues would be $100 million and it would continue forever, many years, but it topped at about 25 after a few years. So anyway, that's just a little bit of sort of broadening the concept of inventory a little bit for you. Okay, so that kind of wraps up chapter 9. So you kind of move on to the quiz and all that good stuff.